Hello, my dear students. Welcome to today's lesson. I have a question for you. Do you want to learn English? Think about it for a moment. Maybe you have tried before. Maybe you are just starting. Maybe you feel excited, or maybe you feel nervous. Learning a new language is not always easy, but I want to tell you something very important. You can do it. Yes, you can learn English, and I am here to help you. Let me tell you a little secret. I was just like you. I wanted to learn English, but it was difficult. When I was young, I saw people speaking English on TV. They spoke so fast. I did not understand a single word. It sounded like music, but I could not catch the words. I thought, how can I ever speak like them? It felt impossible. When I started learning English, I felt lost. The words were new, the sentences were different from my own language. I tried to read English books, but they looked too hard. I listened to people speaking, but I could not understand. Sometimes, I felt frustrated. I thought, maybe English is not for me. Maybe I will never learn. Have you ever felt like that? Have you ever thought that English is too difficult? If you have, don't worry. I know exactly how you feel. I was in the same place. But guess what? I did not give up. I kept trying. And little by little, step by step, I learned English. And now, look at me. Today, I am here, teaching you in English. I can speak, read, and write in English. And do you know what that means? It means you can do it too. Yes, if I can learn English, so can you. Learning English is a journey. It is not something you learn in one day or 1 week. But if you take small steps every day, you will improve. You will understand more. You will feel more confident. And one day, you will be able to speak English just like me. So, are you ready to start this journey? Are you ready to learn English with me? Let's begin. I still remember the first time I heard English. It was a normal day at school, and I was sitting in my classroom with my classmates. We were chatting in our own language, waiting for the teacher to come in. I was relaxed, thinking about the lesson, expecting it to be just like every other day. But that day was different. That day, something happened that I would never forget. Our teacher walked into the room holding a book in her hands. She looked at us with a big smile and said something. But this time, her words were not in my language. They were in English. I had never heard anyone speak English like that before. It sounded so different, so unfamiliar. The words came out of her mouth quickly, and I could not understand a single thing she was saying. I looked around the classroom, hoping that someone else understood. But my classmates looked just as confused as I was. Some of them whispered to each other, some giggled nervously, and some just stared at the teacher in silence. For a few moments, I felt completely lost. What was she saying? What did those words mean? It was like listening to a song in a language I did not know. The sounds were clear, but they had no meaning to me. I had never felt so confused in a classroom before. In every other subject I could follow along. I could read, write, and answer questions. But now, for the first time, I felt like I was in a different world, where everything was unfamiliar. The teacher walked to the blackboard and picked up a piece of chalk. She wrote 4 simple words. Hello, my name is Sarah. I listened carefully. The words were short, but they sounded different from the way we spoke in my language. The teacher pointed at herself and said it again, slowly this time. Suddenly, I understood. She was introducing herself. She was telling us her name. A small light turned on in my mind. I didn't understand all of the English words she had spoken before, but I understood this one sentence. Then, the teacher looked at us and asked, "What is your name?" I understood her question, but I still felt nervous. Was I supposed to answer in English? I wasn't sure how to say it. I had never spoken English before. I wanted to say something, but I was afraid I would make a mistake. What if I pronounced the words wrong? What if my classmates laughed at me? The classroom was silent. No one wanted to be the first to speak. I could feel my heart beating faster. I wanted to try, but I was too shy. Then, after a few seconds, one of my classmates, a boy named Ali, stood up and said in a quiet voice, "My name is Ali." The teacher clapped her hands and smiled. "Very good, Ali," she said. Ali sat down, looking proud of himself. I was amazed. He had done it. He had spoken English, and the teacher was happy with his answer. Maybe I could do it too. One by one, my classmates started answering. Some of them spoke softly, some of them hesitated, but they all tried. When it was my turn, I felt my hands sweating. My mouth felt dry. But I took a deep breath, stood up slowly, and said, "My name is Jacob." The teacher gave me a big smile. "Well done, Jacob," she said. At that moment, I felt something I had never felt before. I had spoken my first sentence in English. It was not a long sentence, but it was my first step. I had done it. I had spoken English, and nothing bad had happened. My classmates did not laugh at me. The teacher did not correct me. She simply smiled, and that smile gave me confidence. After that lesson, I kept thinking about English. I could not stop thinking about how interesting and different it was. Even though I did not understand most of what the teacher said, I wanted to learn more. I wanted to understand. I wanted to speak. I wanted to learn English. But I also knew something else. It was going to be difficult. English was new to me. English was different. English was hard. I knew that learning a new language would not be easy. I would make mistakes. I would struggle. There would be times when I would feel lost and frustrated. But I also knew something very important. I wanted to learn. That was the beginning of my English journey. I did not know it at the time, but that small moment in class, that simple sentence, "My name is Jacob," was the first step towards something much bigger. It was the first step towards a journey that would change my life forever. My struggles and challenges. After my first experience with English, I was excited. I wanted to learn more. I wanted to speak fluently. I wanted to understand everything. But soon I realized something. Learning English was not easy. It was much harder than I had imagined. At first, I tried to speak English, but the words did not come out easily. My tongue felt heavy, and my mind felt slow. I knew what I wanted to say, but I could not find the right words. When I finally tried to speak, my pronunciation was wrong. My sentences were not correct. I made many mistakes. I felt shy. I felt embarrassed. Sometimes my classmates laughed when I made mistakes. They did not mean to be unkind, but it still hurt. I remember one time I tried to say, "I like apples," but instead, I said something wrong, and the whole class laughed. My face turned red. I wanted to hide. I wanted to disappear. Maybe English is not for me, I thought. I started to lose confidence. Every time I tried to speak, I worried about making mistakes. I was afraid people would laugh again. So, I stayed quiet. I stopped trying to speak. But deep inside, I still wanted to learn English. I knew that English was important. I knew that if I could speak English, I would have more opportunities in life. I would be able to talk to more people. I would be able to read English books and watch English movies. I did not want to give up. One day, my teacher said something that changed my way of thinking. She told me, "Making mistakes is a part of learning. If you never make mistakes, you will never improve." Her words stayed in my mind. I thought about them again and again. Maybe mistakes were not bad. Maybe mistakes were helping me learn. So I made a decision. I would not stop. I would not give up. I would keep trying, no matter how many mistakes I made. My learning method, I knew I had to change the way I learned. I could not just sit in class and listen. I had to do more. I had to practice English every day. 1. Listening to English. Every day. The first thing I did was listen to English every day. I started listening to English songs, even though I did not understand the lyrics. I watched English cartoons, even though I could only understand a few words. I played English radio in the background while I did my homework. At first, everything sounded too fast. I could not catch the words. It felt like a sea of sounds that I could not separate. But I did not stop. I kept listening. I listened again and again. Slowly, my ears became familiar with the sounds of English. I started recognizing words. I started understanding simple sentences. One day, I was watching a cartoon, and I suddenly understood a sentence without reading the subtitles. I felt so happy. It was a small moment, but it showed me that I was improving. 2. Reading simple books. The next thing I did was read simple books. At first, I tried to read long English books, but they were too difficult. I could not understand most of the words, and I felt frustrated. Then, I found a small English book for children. It had simple words and short sentences. I started reading it. At first, I had to look up many words in the dictionary, but I did not stop. I read the book again and again. The more I read, the more words I remembered. After some time, I moved on to slightly harder books. I still did not understand everything, but I kept going. Reading helped me learn new words, and it also helped me understand English grammar better. 3. Practicing speaking alone. One of my biggest problems was speaking. I was still afraid of making mistakes in front of people. So I found a way to practice alone. Every day, I stood in front of a mirror and spoke English to myself. I introduced myself. I talked about my day. I practiced simple conversations. It felt strange at first, but slowly I became more comfortable. I also started thinking in English. When I walked to school, I looked at things around me and tried to name them in English. I thought about what I would say if someone asked me a question in English. One day, I decided to record my voice. I spoke in English and listened to myself. At first, I did not like how I sounded. I felt like my pronunciation was terrible. But I did not stop. I kept practicing, and little by little, my confidence grew. The results of my hard work. After months of listening, reading, and practicing, something amazing happened. One day in class, my teacher asked a question in English. Without thinking, I answered in English. For the first time, I did not feel nervous. For the first time, I spoke confidently. My classmates looked at me with surprise. My teacher smiled and said, "Great job, Jacob." At that moment, I knew I was improving. I was really learning English. I still made mistakes, but I did not feel afraid anymore. Instead of feeling shy, I felt excited to learn more. I realized that learning English is like climbing a mountain. At first, it feels impossible, it is difficult, and you feel like stopping. But if you keep climbing, step by step, one day you will look back and see how far you have come. And that was just the beginning of my English journey. I made many mistakes, but mistakes helped me learn. As I continued my journey to learn English, one thing became clear to me. Mistakes were a part of the process. I made mistakes every day. In fact, I made many, many mistakes. At first, I thought that mistakes were bad. I thought that if I made a mistake, it meant I was failing. But as time went on, I began to understand something very important. Mistakes were not failures. Mistakes were steps toward learning. I still remember the first time I tried to have a full conversation in English. I was talking to my friend, and I wanted to say something about my favorite food. I wanted to tell him, "I love pizza," but instead, I said, "I love peas." My friend looked at me with a confused expression and asked, "Do you love peas?" I could feel my face turning red. I wanted to disappear. I made a mistake. I had said the wrong word, and it was so embarrassing. But instead of laughing, my friend smiled and said, "Oh, I love pizza too." In that moment, I realized that it was okay to make mistakes. It was okay to get the words wrong. What mattered was that I was trying. What mattered was that I was speaking and practicing. From that day on, I started to feel different about mistakes. I no longer feared them. Instead, I saw them as opportunities to learn. Every time I made a mistake, I learned something new. One time, I mixed up the words live and leave. I wanted to say, "I live in Kabul," but instead I said, "I leave in Kabul." A teacher heard me and gently corrected me. At first I felt embarrassed, but then I thought, okay, now I know the difference. I will never forget this. I also made mistakes with grammar. English grammar was very hard for me. For example, I didn't know when to use am or is. I kept saying, "I am a student," when I should have said, "She is a teacher." But over time, and with the help of my teachers and friends, I started to get it right. Each time I made a mistake, I remembered the correct way to say it. Through all of these mistakes, I learned a valuable lesson. It's okay to make mistakes. Mistakes help you grow. My progress and success. As I kept learning and practicing, I started to notice something amazing happening. I started to make fewer mistakes. My English was improving. I could understand more when people spoke. I could read English books more easily. And best of all, I could speak English. One day, something incredible happened. I was sitting in the park with my friend, and we were talking about our plans for the weekend. For the first time ever, we were speaking in English. We didn't switch to our native language. We didn't feel the need to use simple words. We were both speaking English fluently. It was a simple conversation, but to me, it was a huge achievement. I could speak English. Not perfectly, of course, but I could say what I wanted to say. I could have a real conversation in English. That day, I felt so happy. I felt confident. I looked at my friend and said, "I can speak English." He smiled and said, "Yes, you can." And in that moment, I realized that all the struggles, all the mistakes, all the hard work, it had all paid off. I was no longer the shy student who was afraid to speak. I was now someone who could speak with confidence. I could communicate in English. My progress was not just about speaking, it was about everything. I could listen to English without feeling lost. I could read English books and understand them. I could write simple sentences. My vocabulary was growing every day. I remember the first time I read a short story in English, from start to finish, without looking up every other word. I was so proud of myself. It was a small thing, but it meant a lot. It was proof that my hard work was paying off. Now I can teach you. Now I want to share what I have learned with you. I have come a long way since I first started learning English. I remember the struggle, the confusion, and the frustration. But I also remember the moments of success, the moments when I spoke English with confidence, when I understood a sentence, when I read a book without struggling. And now I can teach you. I know exactly how you feel right now. You might be feeling confused. You might be making mistakes, just like I did. But I am here to tell you, you are not alone. Every student who learns English goes through this process. Every student makes mistakes. But if you keep going, just like I did, you will see progress. I want you to remember something very important. Learning English is a journey. It is not easy, and it does not happen overnight. But if you keep trying, if you keep practicing, you will improve. You will make mistakes, and that's okay. Those mistakes are just steps on the way to success. So, keep going, speak English, read English, listen to English, and most importantly, don't give up. I was once in your shoes. I was once a beginner, just like you. And now, I am here to teach you, to help you on your journey. Together we can learn English, and you can become confident, just like me. As I look back on my journey to learn English, I feel so proud. It wasn't an easy journey. It wasn't a fast one either. But it was a journey of growth. I remember feeling lost at first, not understanding anything, and making mistake after mistake. I remember how I felt when I tried to speak and couldn't get the words out, or when I mixed up words, and people didn't understand me. But I also remember those small moments of success when everything started to come together. When I understood something I had never understood before. When I could speak a sentence without stopping. When I read a book without having to look up every word. That journey was hard, but it was worth it. And now, I want to tell you something very important. If I can do it, you can do it too. I know how it feels to be a beginner. I know how it feels to look at a page of English words and wonder if you'll ever understand them. I know what it feels like to make mistakes and feel embarrassed. But here's the truth. Everyone makes mistakes. Mistakes are a part of learning. They are not something to be afraid of, they are something to be embraced. Every mistake you make is a step closer to speaking English confidently. Every mistake you make is a chance to learn. The key is to never give up. If you practice every day, little by little, you will improve. You don't need to speak perfectly today. You don't need to understand everything right now. The most important thing is to keep going. Even on the days when you feel tired, even on the days when you feel frustrated, even on the days when it feels like you're not improving at all, Keep going. Keep practicing. You can practice English in many ways. You can listen to English every day. You can watch English videos, movies, or listen to songs. You can read simple books and try to understand the words. You can speak English with friends or even by yourself. The more you practice, the better you will get. Remember, there is no rush. You don't have to be perfect right away. Learning takes time. Just like when you were learning to walk or ride a bike, it takes time to learn English. But with practice, you will improve. When I first started learning English, I never imagined that I would be able to teach others. But here I am, telling you my story, sharing my experiences with you. And if I can do this, you can do it too. Believe in yourself. You have the power to learn English. It's not about being the smartest or the quickest. It's about being consistent. It's about believing that you can do it. It's about having the courage to try, even when it feels difficult. So, never be afraid to make mistakes. Mistakes are your teachers. They are showing you how to get better. And every time you make a mistake and learn from it, you are getting closer to your goal. You can learn English. It doesn't matter where you're from or what your first language is. If you keep practicing every day, if you never give up, you will succeed. You are not alone on this journey. I was once where you are, and now I am here, cheering you on. I believe in you, and I know that you can do it. You can learn English too. Take it one step at a time. Practice every day. Don't be afraid of making mistakes. Keep going, and remember that every small effort counts. And always remember, if I can learn English, you can too.